I love your philosophy. Can you please do a response to Neil deGrasse Tyson explains why humans have no soul, a short and new video that just released. Neil deGrasse Tyson says human beings have no soul. Well, I'll tell you something. That is not a question for Neil deGrasse Tyson. Neil deGrasse Tyson is not a philosopher. He's really out of his wheelhouse. I don't think he knows about why people believe we have a soul. I would love to be in a room with Neil deGrasse Tyson. I would teach him so many things about philosophy. His mind would melt. I would teach him so many things. There's so many things in science. This is gonna get me in trouble, but because most people don't know. They're not trained in philosophy, so they have no idea the discussion in philosophy. Okay, there's so many things in philosophy logicians discuss that scientists have no understanding about whatsoever. So when they come into our arena, they have to take a white belt, but they don't want to take a white belt. And some do, believe me, some do. Some become philosophers of science, some become philosophers themselves. And the classic philosophers the classic scientists did philosophy and science. Those were the best thinkers. Those were the best. He's completely wrong. He's out of his wheelhouse. And he doesn't know the first thing about I've listened to him talk. Okay, he's a smart guy. He's a super intelligent guy. Don't get me wrong. Neil deGrasse Tyson is a super intelligent guy. He has a genius level IQ, but he's trained in the scientific method. That's what he understands. That's his paradigm. But he's completely wrong about this. Completely wrong. I remember Daniel Dennett. He wrote a book called Consciousness Explained. Philosophers read that book. We tore it apart. I'm telling you, like very well renowned philosophers destroyed that book. It was a humiliation. That book. I know Daniel Dennett, he's praised as like, oh, he's one of the 4 horsemen. He's so smart. Oh, man, this guy's such his book was horrible. His reviews were bad. Why? Because he said things that he walked back later. After philosophers corrected him, after philosophers critiqued him, he walked back. People call that book, philosophers call that book, Consciousness Explained Away. Okay, let's talk about consciousness for 1 second, okay? Let's talk about mind. You have a brain, but you also have a mind. When you're talking, every time Neil deGrasse Tyson is making an argument, he's trying to change your mind. He's using his mind to make an argument. He cannot counter. He cannot say, look, I don't have a mind, but by saying that very statement, he's using his mind to make up that position. His mind is taking a position. It's not his brain that's taking the position. It's the mind. We have to differentiate between the mind and the brain. Okay, I don't want to blow up the internet here. But Leibniz's first law of logic, okay, his first law of logic was, you guys are going to find it absurd, the law of identity. If everything you could say about A, you could say about B, then A and B is the same. Okay, listen carefully. I thought when I first heard this, I was like, man, who's going to use this? Like, I thought I was wrong. I was totally wrong, guys. I wish my professor slapped me. He's like, hey, pay attention. This is really important. Like, I thought it was a bit silly when I first heard it. Okay, Leibniz says, I thought it was so obvious. Doesn't everybody know this? Like, why do we have to make it a rule? Forget old me. Old me was a dumbass. Like, I was really dumb. I wish my professor just slapped me and said, look, you're wasting time. Pay attention. This is really important. One day you're going to need this. If everything I could say about A, it's a law of identity. Okay, it's a spin-off from Aristotle. Okay, he did a different formula, but there are some similarities. If everything you can say about A, you could also say about B, then A and B are the same. Now, everything I could say about the brain, can I say everything I can say about the brain? Can I also say that about the mind? No. I can weigh a brain. Can you weigh a mind? You can't weigh a mind. Therefore, they're not the same. Leibniz will tell you they're not the same. However, can Neil deGrasse Tyson deny we have a mind? If he denied we have a mind, he would be denying the one thing philosophers all agree, logicians all agree, is undeniable. We cannot deny the mind. The second you try to doubt the mind, you've proven the mind. How did you doubt? Well, you used your mind to doubt. Well, there you go. You just proved the mind exists. We cannot deny the mind. That's why Bennett got stomped on so bad. I love what John Searle says. He says, look, can you imagine a zombie? A zombie is like a human being with no mind, right? They're just kind of moving, but they don't have a mind. They don't have a rational mind. He goes, that's how you know. Look, the fact that I can take it away. Can you have a car without car seats? Sure, you can have a car without car seats. Remove the car seats. There you go. You have a car with no car seats in it. If I can remove something, that means it exists. It's a part of the equation. When we say soul, etc., we're talking about also the mind. The mind is synonymous with the soul. It's part of it. So Neil deGrasse Tyson, I have to ask him next, how do you know you have a mind? Did you use a scientific experiment? Did you put it in a test tube? Did you weigh it? The answer is no. So in philosophy, we have a question. Is science absolute? What does that mean, is science absolute? Well, let me give you a martial arts analogy, since this is also primarily a martial arts. Is jiu-jitsu absolute? If jiu-jitsu is absolute, that means that's all you need. You don't need anything else. You don't need striking. You don't need the conditioning. You don't need kickboxing. You don't need wrestling takedowns. If jiu-jitsu was absolute, meaning there's no other need, is the rear naked choke absolute? If it was absolute, that means you don't need guillotine. You don't need armbar. It always works. It explains everything. It does it all. The fact that we have other submissions is because rear naked choke is not always available. In this present situation, it's not there. I'm going to use guillotine. I'm going to use armbar. I'm going to use leg lock. None of these maneuvers. People tell me like, okay, let's say, would you use one pass? No, but it's not available. That's why we need a number of passes. None of these passes are absolute. So we ask in philosophy, we ask in logic, I should use the word logic, is science, the scientific method, is it absolute? The answer is a resounding no, because we know things that science cannot grasp. Leibniz gave one of the most beautiful examples. He said, look, imagine you are really, really tiny and you can walk around inside your mind. You can walk around somebody's mind. And you are a scientist. You're the top scientist ever in history. And you're observing this human brain. You would see blood flow. You would see neurons firing. You'd see brain matter. You'd see all sorts of brain activity. However, you would know nothing about the mind. Nothing. It's outside of our scope of empiricism. We cannot use our senses and our equipment to detect it. However, because we're having a direct experience with it, that's where intuition comes from. That's why Ghazali, in my opinion, was arguably the greatest thinker ever. He's the first one to touch on it. He's like, wait, there's not just math and biology. There's this other thing, intuition. Direct experience. It's undeniable. It's actually more certain than science. It's actually more certain than mathematics. Because you can't study science without a mind. The brain is nestled in the mind. It's not the mind that's nestled in the brain. For those of you who are more interested in this, study idealism. The vast majority of top elite thinkers are idealists. You know, I thought of you guys once. I came across a quote from Heisenberg. And I said, you know what? I'm sure one day somebody's going to ask me a philosophy question and I'm going to clash with materialist philosophers. But let me quote you something from Heisenberg, if you guys don't mind. Now, Heisenberg, guys, if you want to know, Heisenberg is like Mike Tyson of science, okay? He's up there. He's higher than Neil deGrasse Tyson. You guys go and knock on Neil deGrasse's door and you ask him, who's greater, you or Heisenberg? He's going to be like, Heisenberg. He's going to tell you, Heisenberg. No doubt, Heisenberg. Let me see if I can pick it up here. All right, let's see here. I saved it for you guys. Where did I save it? Come on now. Here it is. The atoms or elementary particles themselves are not real. They form a world of potentialities or possibilities rather than one of things or facts. Why does he say they're not real? Heisenberg also ultimately said that the elementary particles are akin to a mathematical equation. There's no material. See, he's not a materialist philosopher. He's abandoned materialism. He's become an idealist, a scientist, pushed so hard, he became a philosopher. Guys, Heisenberg is one of the most influential thinkers of all time. Okay, I'm full of quotes. The laws of nature themselves manifest a certain spiritual quality. This quality is not supernatural, but it is something that transcends the purely physical world. There's something beyond the physical world. Man, it's just quote after quote. Listen to this. The smallest units of matter are not physical objects in ordinary sense. Hold on a second, it got cut off. Oh, here it is. Okay. Hold on a second. Damn it. The smallest units of matter are not physical objects in an ordinary sense. They are forms and concepts. They are conceptual. He's an idealist. By saying that, he's joined us, the team of idealists. I can go much further with this, okay? But I would challenge a Neil deGrasse Tyson to prove materialism. I don't think he even know where to start. Guys, there's a huge war in philosophy. Idealists versus materialists versus dualists. It's a long-ass war. It's crazy. This war never ends. But I'll tell you something. The greatest thinkers, they became idealists. Case in point, Heisenberg. You guys go and ask Neil deGrasse Tyson to explain you the comments of Heisenberg. He won't be able to because he's not a philosopher. Only philosophers understand what Heisenberg is talking about. See, Schrodinger said, no. The elementary particles are akin to a celestial body. You know, like you guys have seen how they draw atoms, etc. You know, like there's a nucleus and there's neutrons floating. It's akin to a celestial body. Heisenberg is saying, no, it's akin to a mathematical equation. It's information. It is not an actual thing out there. An indestructible, the original term for atom means to be indivisible. It cannot be divided any further.